Hey everyone, in today's video we are talking about the most important strategy that you need to have in order to consistently keep improving your accuracy when you're answering GMAT level questions. At the beginning of your preparation, now typically this is for most people, at the beginning of your preparation you would be filling in gaps in your knowledge. You would be learning new concepts, you will be learning new strategies. And as you learn these new concepts and as you apply these strategies, you will find that your accuracy and your speed even in answering your questions is going up rapidly. For most people, unfortunately, after you get your basics in place, there will reach a point where you will reach this plateau in your performance. No matter what you do, your accuracy will not go beyond 70% or 80%. You will find that you are not improving your GMAT score in your mock test. Typically, this happens because we're running around in circles, chasing our own tail, not really paying attention to why we are making the mistakes that we do make. Our analysis begins and ends at saying, hey, I got 80% of the questions right in this set of questions. In the next set, I got 82% right, so I'm improving. What we don't stop to think about is why we got the 20% wrong in the first set and the 18% wrong in the second set. Maybe there is a type of mistake that we make. Maybe those kinds of questions were not part of the second set where we saw an improved accuracy. Maybe in the third set of questions that we practice, 35% of the questions might revolve around this concept gap that we have, but we have not identified yet. And our accuracy will suddenly fall to 65 or 70%. We'll feel disheartened. We'll blame it on the GMAT being subjective and being unfair and frustrating. And no matter how many months we spend on our preparation, things are going nowhere. But that frustration stems from our inability to actually look at it strategically. So we're going to talk today about how you can have that strategy in place to analyze your incorrect questions so we're not running around in circles anymore. And that strategy is to basically create an error log. What is this error log? It is simply a place where you're keeping track of all your incorrect questions. Now, you don't just mark that you got a particular question wrong, you make a note of the why, and that is the most important part. That is going to help with our learning and with our improvement. We're going to note down why we made the mistake and take the time to analyze that question rather than just jump into the next question to practice. Now, this error log can be kept on a notepad where you're just writing things down if that's what you prefer. You can also have something like a computer document, like an Excel file, as the place where you are keeping a track of your errors. But you need to have it all in one place. Don't track down the why in random bits of paper that then get lost in the wind and you have no clue what you did to those scraps of paper, because then you're not going to have them on hand to review and to progress. Interestingly, I also want you to make a note of some questions you got right. What sort of questions? The one you got right, but with you have no clue why you got them right. That also indicates a concept gap, something that you're missing. In a different scenario, a slightly different kind of but similar question, when it's presented to you, you might make a mistake then because you still have that concept gap. So you might have marked an answer, you would have looked at the explanations and you'd have been like, that's not how I was thinking of this question at all. That's not how I approached it. This option sounded right, so I went with it. This number seemed to be in the range, so I went with it. But make a note of what you missed out in those questions as well. So what is the advantage of keeping this error log? You definitely have a way of identifying your weak areas. The thing about our mistakes is there is always a pattern to your errors. If you make 10 mistakes, you're not making it for 10 reasons. You're making it for 4 reasons. Now, the thing is, my 4 reasons would be different from your 4 reasons. So I cannot just make a video and say these are the only 4 reasons that you're making mistakes, so that you can then stop making those mistakes. We all need to do our independent analysis, because after a point in time, improvement does not happen unless it is specialized for our thought process. Your error could be as simple as, I try and practice questions after I come home from work, and it's 7 p.m. and I have worked for 10 hours already and I'm exhausted. Any reading comprehension passage I try and do at 7 p.m. I mess it up, and any question I do at 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. I get it right. Maybe that's the pattern to your errors. But that's not something that I can observe or something that I can tell you. And that's an individual observation you have to make, and then you have to say, you know what, don't book the exam when you're likely to be tired. Book the test when you're likely to be focused. So I'm going to take the morning slot or afternoon slot or something like that. Or I'm going to sleep before I go to the test, right? That might be the solution that we're all ultimately looking for. This gives you a fast turnaround in improving your scores. You will no longer be at that plateau. You will start scaling up again, because now you know these are the specific areas I need to work on. Right now, your analysis might be just saying, hey, I'm making mistakes in sentence correction. My accuracy is only 60%. My RC and CR accuracies are higher. Maybe that's all your analysis is right now. When you have an error log and you're constantly looking at why you're making those sentence correction mistakes, you will be able to narrow it down, and you will be able to say, my mistakes always happen in comparison and tenses questions. That's what I am missing out on. So then you only need to go back and refresh your theory and your knowledge for comparison and tenses related questions. You don't have to learn the whole range of grammar rules all over again. That means you're being more efficient with your time. You're being more efficient with your preparation, because you're focusing on those specific areas that really need that work. And that's how you will ultimately be able to improve your scores. To give you a broad idea to begin the tracking, the broad types of errors that you can possibly have. There are subcategories here, but these are the broad types of errors. You can have subject knowledge gaps. So you don't know a concept at all. For an example, you didn't know a particular property of an isosceles triangle, so when the question tested the property, you had no clue what was happening, and therefore you got the answer wrong. You could have answering errors. These are the ones that we classify as silly mistakes. Basically, I made a calculation mistake. I did not read the question properly. I was in a hurry when I was reading the passage. I marked the wrong answer, which is another silly mistake that we make. You worked out the question, you knew the answer was C, but in your hurry to mark the answer, you marked it as a B. And finally, judgment errors. Sometimes, because we've spent a certain amount of time in a question, we tend to keep investing more time in the question, struggling and fighting to get the right answer. So judgment errors are knowing the broad test taking strategy. When do I spend more time on a question, and when do I cut my losses short and move on? These are the broad types of errors that you can make. So make a note of what kind of an error you are making for each and every question, because that's going to tell you, one, the pattern to your answering, so that if there are any behavioral patterns that you need to change, you can work on that. There are people who always make mistakes when converting statement problems or word problems into equations, not because they don't know the concept, but because they're in a hurry and miss out on vital bits of information. So then the strategy is simply to tell them, slow down when you're answering these questions, don't be in such a rush. So you will be able to correct your behavioral errors, and you will be able to do focused preparation, learning the subject matter that best fills the gaps in your knowledge. This is a quick example of what an error log on Excel can look like. You can have a question number, correct answer, your answer, the reason you missed it. So assume this is an RC passage, missed crucial information while reading the passage, So the crucial information was lost. Why? You think about it, you do the analysis right away, right after you've done the question, and you realize you need to take time to process the information. You read the passage way too fast. So don't ever try and read a passage in under 1 minute. Is the learning that you're giving yourself. This, let's assume, is a sentence correction question. So question number 12, you got the correct answer. It matches, but you're still putting it in the error log because you didn't get it right for the correct reasons. You picked the option because it sounded nice. You didn't actually know the rule. So what's the rule? With some idiomatic construction, it goes into your learning column, and now you know that rule. You have learned it. And if you do forget it, all you have to do is do a quick revisit of your learning column a month later, 2 months later, and you will be very familiar with, okay, these are all the mistakes that I was making. You will also be able to track your long-term progress. In the first month of the preparation, what sort of mistakes was I making? And now, what sort of mistakes am I making? And that gives you an idea too of which areas you have worked on and improved and which areas you haven't. So structure your preparation. Make sure you make a note of the flaws and do an analysis. It is to some extent about the number of questions that you practice, but it is to a larger extent about how you think and approach the test. Good luck with your preparation.